So hello and welcome to the Lewis Nichols Show. And we were just saying before we came on, the reunion was, in a good way, was really chaotic, but we didn't get to talk a lot about your career so far. So let's say hello to the lovely Zeri. Thank you so much for coming back.
Hi, Lewis. Thanks so much for inviting me back on.
I mean,
one-on-one for a change.
I know. Well, you were just saying it was nice for you because a lot of these people you hadn't seen for years, but actually you said you enjoyed just listening to some of their stories about being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was on series 2 and 3, so I started in the production quite early on. A lot of the actors continued to still be in the series. There was Reese, Chelsea, Tatchia, and there's quite a few of them, so it was nice to actually hear their journey and their experiences, and yeah, it was just nice to see everybody. I mean, you did an amazing job to get everybody together. I was sat at home, there was people in London, there was people in LA on a completely different time zone. There was one guy on the M60 or whatever it was. So yeah, no, it was really, really good fun, but it's nice to get a one-on-one with you as well.
No, thank you for coming back on. And I mean, if looking at your kind of career, when you go back to the very beginning, was acting and performing arts something you always knew that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, as from far back as I can remember, I think it was just growing up, as an only child. I spent a lot of time watching movies, and I always knew that I always wanted to be on TV and film. I didn't know how, I didn't know what direction it would, I'd have to take to get there. But from a really young age, I think I started off doing ballet at the age of 4. That then went into doing other dance classes such as jazz, tap, modern. Then that evolved into doing drama classes. From a very young age, I was doing something every night. My mum was literally running up and down as a single mum, trying to give me the best, having to make and design my own stage costumes. So yeah, it was full on, but I loved every second of it. I think I'd started to do a few pantos, and I think being on stage and being in a theatre and having that audience interaction was a huge drug for me. I was addicted from then, and I think from that moment forward it was very obvious to me that that's just what I wanted to do.
So was Waterloo Road for you your first kind of television job that you did?
It was my first featured role. So when I say featured role, it's the first role that I had as a character that would be listed in the credits at the end. So I'd actually started off doing extra work, Lewis, on Coronation Street, Emmerdale,
Wow.
Loads of different background artist work. Now, people used to knock extra work, but I didn't, because for me it was a massive opportunity to be on a set with actors that I'd grown up watching. So for me it was a good day out, we met loads of friends and we'd go on set on Corrie, we'd be in Roy's Rolls and The Rover's Return, and I remember doing this for years. Like literally I loved doing extra work. It was my little first step into being on TV. And then when I was in the background, I did actually think at one point, how do I get to be in the forefront? How do I get to be, on the main stage? So I changed agencies, and I started getting small parts and small roles in dramas such as Cracker. There was Scott and Bailey, New Street Law. There was loads of different like ITV dramas that I had, one episode here and, a couple of scenes there. But yeah, Waterloo Road was actually my first ever featured role, playing Celine Dixon.
And obviously the series just became one of the BBC's most successful shows. So when you first joined that, because I remember you were doing interviews for it on like the, big TV shows to promote it. So kind of that must have been like a life changer for you, that suddenly you're into the limelight on one of the biggest shows. Was that something you enjoyed, kind of the overnight success and the fame that came with it?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite surreal actually, and the reason being is because as much as I wanted to go into acting, my mum would not let me do it full time until I'd studied and got my degree. So I was actually studying at Leeds University, doing a PR degree, and my mum said, you can do whatever you want, you can go into acting, go into TV, go into film, but you're getting your qualifications, you're getting your degree. So I remember handing in my dissertation. I did public relations at uni, handed in my dissertation, and 4 weeks later, I got the audition for Waterloo Road and I got the role. So for me, I just believe that everything kind of happens for a reason. The timing was perfect. I could work full time, basically going straight into a job after university. So I ended up moving to Manchester. So I'm from Leeds originally, moved to Manchester. Because we're filming in Rochdale, it was actually nearer for me to travel from Manchester to Rochdale. And I was 24, so, you know, I was living it up in the city centre apartment, 24 years old, filming. I was literally loving life. And it was an amazing time as well, especially when I think it was in series 3 when Celine's character obviously had the big attack scene. There was lots of coverage on my local news where they wanted to interview me and talk about how we actually actioned those scenes and how the safety measures were put in. So yeah, it was a massive show. I remember watching series 1 and thinking, I'm hooked. This for me is like, this is amazing, this show. And then ironically, when I got the audition, I was like, oh, I love it, but I just don't think I'm going to end up getting a part on it. And I did. So I was very lucky, very grateful, and just happy to get the 2 series that I did out of the show.
And with that show, the actors that were on it, I was speaking to Angela Griffin in an interview, and the thing is, the cast was so well established, so famous. So for you as a young actress to be on the show with like Denise Welch, Angela, and so many big names, were there ever times where you were a little bit starstruck, where you were kind of like, oh my God, I know them from watching other TV shows?
Yeah, it's funny because you are starstruck. It's a natural thing when you've watched so many people grow up on screen. And funnily enough, I think I was a little bit too young to be watching men behaving badly when Neil Morrissey was in it. But I do remember him being the voice for Bob the Builder. So I remember in between scenes, I used to be like, go on, Neil, do Bob. And he'd just come out with this phrase of Bob the Builder and he'd have us all in stitches. So with working on set with famous people, and you never class yourself as being famous at all, but when you're on set with famous people, within 5 minutes it's gone. The intimidation's gone, because we're all just normal people. We're all just doing a job that we love, which just happens to be on a TV screen, you know, shown to millions of people. But for me, it was more of a case of I just felt really privileged to be, you know, working with actors that I'd grown up watching. And the intimidation just kind of, you know, evaporated after, you know, day 1 and day 2. And the thing is that we were so close off set. You know, we all had like this camaraderie off set where we'd all kind of go into each other's dressing rooms and play music and have a laugh, and, you know, people going out for cheeky cigarettes. And, you know, it was just one of those things where off set we were like a little family. So, one of the other things as well that I don't know whether you know, but to make sure that everybody got on set on time, we all had a driver. So there was nothing pretentious about it. It wasn't like, oh, we had a chauffeur, but we all had a driver because 9 times out of 10, somebody was late on set. And there's a system in place here where all the scenes have to be done by a certain time. Lunch has to be done at a certain time, and you need to be back on set after lunch at a certain time. So we had a driver. And because I lived in the city centre, a lot of the older actors who were playing the teachers all had apartments in the city centre as well. So we'd have this minibus and we'd all get picked up and get taken to set at the same time. Sometimes it was 5 a.m. Some of us had been to bed the night before, and some of us hadn't. So some of the conversations that we used to have in that minibus on the way to set was just massive icebreakers. So by the time we got on set, it was just like, you know, we were all really good friends, really close.
Well, you mentioned just then Neil Morrissey and making you laugh with doing kind of Bob the Builder voices. But I mean, later on in the recent years, he actually publicly said it was the worst show he'd ever done, the weakest scripts. It made him depressed. What were your kind of memories with working with him? Did he ever give the impression he didn't like the show because he was such a big part?
Yeah. The thing is, Lewis, with anything like, depression and things like that, a lot of people do cover it up very well. I
Yeah,
know that I've had parts, there's been chapters in my acting career which have been very low lows, and nobody really talks about it. It would be really interesting to actually have, open, candid conversations about how the acting industry can actually affect people's mental health. And one of the things that I think that people do need to realise is that, acting can be this amazing, amazing job. And I absolutely love it. But I've had loads of situations where it's not been so great, and you've got to be resilient, and you've got to be very motivated and driven to pick yourself back up and to get back, in the rat race with everybody else. The funny thing is with actors is that I think we all have, because we experience a lot of rejection going through for auditions and sometimes not always getting the parts and not always getting told why, it can have a little bit of an effect on your mental health, because you do look at yourself and think, why did I not get that part? Or, why was I not
yeah.
cast in that TV film? And you've got to have a very, very tough skin as an actor. Some people can handle it and some people can't, and some people do turn to drink and drugs and other things to kind of sedate that feeling, and some people do go into deep depression. So I do think that with the acting industry, I'd probably say that everybody has suffered some sort of low point where whether a job's given them bad press or they've been trolled on social media because of a certain role that they've done. You've got to have such a thick skin. It isn't all glamour and glitz, unfortunately. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about, and a lot of people don't talk about. And I'm very open and honest about my experiences as well. But that being said, I'm 38 next month, God forbid.
What?
And yeah, 38 next month. Don't forget, I was 24, Lewis, in Waterloo Road.
Wait, how you literally look the same age as me, and I'm 27. You look absolutely incredible. Oh my God.
Honestly, I've got 3 children, a baby that's not sleeping through the night, lots of makeup and a little bit of lighting always helps. But yeah, I'm 38 next month, and I still love the industry. It's literally as black and white as that. I love the industry. As hard as it can be, as amazing as it can be, I love it. And, like I just said, I've just had a little girl who's 6 months old now. And perfect time to have her, really, because nothing's been going on. Productions have been closed. There's been no auditions. But I'm ready to kind of get back out there now. So no more kids, no more break. That's it now. Full time back into acting.
Well, I was going to say, because when I look at kind of the work you've done since Waterloo Road, there's various breaks, so you've done something, there's a few years where there's nothing, so was that because you had children? Is that why there were kind of years in between each job?
Yes and no. So when I was in Waterloo Road, obviously Celine's character kind of just disappeared. She told Dante that she was pregnant, which I didn't believe, to be fair. I think she was just saying that to get his attention, which didn't work out well in the end for her. And basically the character just ended. I never got asked to go back. I never got told why. From my personal experience, I genuinely believe that production companies, they do look on social media, and it was YouTube back then and MySpace back in the day. And they do want to give fans what they want. And the fans wanted Dante and Chloe to get back together, and that's what the production gave the audience, which then meant that Celine's character basically expired. Now, because of that, it then meant that I was back into being an out-of-work actor. I was on the audition circuit, trying to get other jobs, kind of thinking, how can I not get another job? I've just been on Waterloo Road, like, why is it so difficult? But unfortunately, Lewis, that is kind of part of the course. You know, people leave soaps after being in them for 10, 15 years to go to Hollywood or to go, you know, do TV elsewhere in film, and then going back into soaps. It's hard. It's a rat race. It's difficult. It's not easy, you know, at all. So there was a break there after Waterloo Road, and it was purely down to the fact that I just couldn't get any work. I couldn't get any work, and I had bills to pay. Like I said, I was living in Manchester on my own in a city centre apartment, and I had bills to pay. So I used my degree and I set up a PR agency, working freelance, working with a few celebrities, working with a few footballers, and just doing that as and when I could go for auditions. So I was multitasking, kind of going for auditions, working. In fact, my first ever client was Micah Richards, who played for City at the time. And because of my contacts with the media and celebrity industry, it was quite easy to pick up clients and do their personal PR and branding, or whatever it is that they're wanting to promote. And then the audition started to come in and work started to pick up. So then I started to get back into filming again. And then I met my husband, and then I had children. So then I had another break. So yeah, I think what people have got to understand is that we have a life outside of the camera. And, you know, for me, having children was something that I wanted to focus on full time. Being on set is sometimes a 12-hour day, and I just didn't want to spend that time away from, you know, a newborn baby. I was juggling a lot at the time, and something had to give, so I signed myself off from the agency. And then ironically, my little boy Romeo, who was 9 months old at the time, ended up being cast in Coronation Street for 2 years.
Really?
So I ended up being chaperone, and he played baby George, who was Mary Taylor's grandson. So even though I'd been signed off acting, I was still on set with him, and he was, you know, doing scenes with Rita in her shop, and he was, you know, had a christening in the Rover's Return. So I still kind of had a little bit of, you know, involvement in TV and film, and my children also did modelling as well. So there was always kind of bits going on, but I put myself last. As a mum, that's what you do. You put yourself last. But now that I've had all the babies and they're all in school, and, you know, the little ones kind of getting bigger, it's time for me to kind of start thinking about me and doing what I love now. And no breaks are going to be getting in the way now, Lewis. So hopefully we can, you know, watch this space.
Well, obviously, being on set, you know, with your child on Coronation Street, I guess over the years you would have got to know so many of the cast. You know, when you were an extra, then you were actually on the show. So that must have been kind of weird, because you would have known these people, and then now you're there with your child. So that must have been like a great moment, because they would have known you, I imagine, quite well.
Well, funnily enough, the casting director knew me very well, because I think I'd auditioned for Coronation Street about 10 times and unfortunately not got a role. So when I went in with my son, I knew we were on first name terms, but my little boy did have to audition even at 9 months old. He just sat on my knee, and they asked me questions about like his routine and his temperament, and they asked for a little cuddle, and he's such a happy little baby anyway. And before we even drove out of the studios around me, and just said that he'd got the part. So working on set with him was great, because I also got to meet some of the other actors and characters on set, and that I'd grown up watching, but I also got to know a lot of them, you know, quite personally as well, because we were on set every week for 2 years. But ironically, I actually got cast as a nurse in Coronation Street. And that, I think, was down to Romeo being in, to be fair, and being on set. And they knew that I'd taken a break, and they just came into our green room one day and said, look, we've got this role, do you want to audition for it? So I said, yeah, if I can work it around Romeo's schedule, like, I'll be happy to just do just a couple of scenes, because I wouldn't be able to commit to doing anything more than that. So I auditioned and I got the part, and yeah, I played Kim Marsh's nurse, did some lovely scenes with Kim Marsh, and then the year later they asked me to go back and do some nursing roles with Liz McDonald as well. So I definitely think that Romeo helped Mummy get a lot more work than probably I should have done, but yeah, got to hand it to him.
I just love it because it's such an iconic show. I mean, I went there as a fan to just to have it because it's one of those shows where everybody grows up with it. You know all the characters, but not, you know, you've gone from Waterloo Road, you've done Corrie, but then Emmerdale as well. It's like every big show you can possibly be in, you've done. So what was Emmerdale like, and being on set for the first time and just taking it all in? Because again, that's one of those iconic soaps that have been around for,
Yeah.
you know, our lifetime.
So with Coronation Street, when I used to do extra work, it used to be at Granada Studios near near the back end of town. You know where Granada Studios tours used to be? That's where it was filmed.
Yeah.
So it moved to Trafford Park by the time we'd started filming with Romeo, which is near the Man United Stadium. So everything had changed. Everything was completely different. The whole setup was completely different as well. But basically what had happened was I'd obviously auditioned for Coronation Street, and the director who I auditioned with had moved to Emmerdale, as directors do that work on loads of different sets, different productions. So he'd moved to Emmerdale, and I was moving to Marbella for a month. The house had been renovated. We had all the kids running around, and we thought, you know what, let's just spend 4 weeks in Marbella. We'll pack everything and we'll go. We'll come back. The house will be ready. The day before I was due to fly to Marbella, I got a phone call from Neil Alderton, who was the director that I'd auditioned for at Coronation Street. And he rang me and said, I'm at Emmerdale now, and I've got this amazing role called Marcia. She is a magazine editor. She's very sassy, very motivated, very independent. She's very you. So, you know, would you like the role? So I was like, this is amazing, but I'm flying to Marbella tomorrow for 4 weeks. And Neil said, look, we don't want you to audition. I know that you're capable of doing this role, and we can send over your scripts and your contracts literally today. You know, do you want it? And I was like, yep, go on then, it's mine. So it was really, really touch and go. And so we went to Marbella, we went to Spain, and then a week later, I flew back into Leeds Bradford and filmed, and then flew back to Malaga the next day. And I did that twice. So yeah, I flew from Spain to actually film those scenes. But going back to your question, to being on set on Emmerdale was a dream come true for me. Being on Coronation Street, I was kind of used to it. It was like our second home, to be honest, because Romeo ended up learning to crawl on set. He ended up learning to walk on set. We've got videos of him holding hands with Barbara O'Sullivan, who plays Rita, and she's walking him onto set, and literally it's just like, it's unbelievable that we've got those memories. But it was like a second home for us. Emmerdale was completely different. I'd never really worked on Emmerdale at the forefront as being a character, and it was just fantastic. It was just such an amazing experience, and it was nice to actually play a role that's a little bit older, because I always played younger roles, obviously with Celine as well, always younger roles, always playing teenagers and, like, you know, young adults, whereas this character was just very me. So I loved every minute. I loved every minute of being in Emmerdale. It was great.
Well, I can understand why you play younger roles, because you're 38 and I thought you were 27. So I don't think they can cast you for any.
My bags aren't like I'm on very little sleep tonight, Lewis, from last night, Lewis. So yeah.
Well, do you know what I love? I mean, if you look at your social media, you post pictures of you and your family on there, and it's just so nice because your children look so happy. You know, you share so many happy memories, and it's so nice that you juggle being an incredible mum, but then an actress as well. And I'm so glad that you're going to be coming back and hopefully do this full time. So it'd be great to see you on our screens again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me, Lewis, is that taking that break was risky. Taking a break from acting for any actor is risky, because you just don't know whether you're forgotten about. You don't know when your next role is going to come in. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to use my degree to set up a PR company and to always kind of have something in the industry kind of bubbling over. I still work with a lot of media personalities now. You know, a lot of people are bringing out brands, they're bringing out their own products, and I help them kind of like get them out into the desired demographic and the audience that they want to sell to. So this influencer kind of era didn't exist when I started PR. So people are now charging to promote products, whereas I'm very old school. I'm, you know, writing press releases and getting people published in magazines and, you know, getting that hard copy of press rather than it being on social media. But juggling everything it's what kind of keeps me going. If I stand still, I'm bored. So for me, I have to be juggling lots of different hats. You know, having 3 children is a lot. I'm not going to lie, it is a lot. And being in lockdown, it's been a lot. Trust me. I'm surprised my hair is not falling out. But like I said before, I've taken that break with a big risk. And in between that break, I was actually still working. I did get at least 1 role a year just to kind of keep my foot in the door. But I mean, let's just see what happens. You know, we're coming out of lockdown. Things are starting to pick up. Thank God for Netflix, because everything on TV was just taken over by reality TV. And I'd been asked to do various shows, Real Housewives of Cheshire and a few other programs, which I turned down purely because going into reality is just not, it would never work for me then going onto screen and playing a character, if you know what I mean. So there was always opportunities to go onto TV, but just not. And I love getting scripts, reading them, revising them, getting into roles, getting into characters, playing around with accents, playing around with different dictions, you know, learning different things about how, you know, this acting elastic band works. And going into reality and playing yourself, I think, is a bit boring. Like, no one really wants to see like what's going on in my, you know, in my home. So for me, I wanted to stay true to being, you know, a bona fide actress. And the good thing about Netflix is it's opened up an army of independent TV and film shows for us all to watch, but it's also opened up a massive door for actors as well to be able to get more jobs. I'm addicted to Netflix. I'm always seeing what's new, what's out there. And yeah, I just think it's time now. I think everything happens for a reason. I think that everything's all about timing. And yeah, I think 2021 is going to be a good year this year.
Well, really, fingers crossed. Well, thank you so much for coming on and just talking more about kind of how you got into acting and other moments in your career. Because I always thought with Celine in Waterloo Road that they just built momentum with this character. And I was actually excited because I thought in the next series, that'd be the perfect time where she could have come back with a bit of a vengeance. And then, you know, you just weren't there again. I think they really missed the trick with the character, in my opinion. I really do.
Well, thanks for saying that. I mean, I definitely felt that at the time. And, you know, it was difficult. I was a little bit like, what are people going to think? Like, where's she gone? What are you going to say? So for me, I have no issue, Lewis, when your character expires and they go, thank you very much. You've done amazing. You know, there's nothing more we can do with the character. And then you kind of like on to the next job. But for me, I felt very protective of that character. And I was a little bit disappointed at how it just kind of ended with no explanation. I actually agree. I do think that the audience did need an explanation. Even now, up until this day, I get messages of people saying, was Celine really pregnant or not? We never got to find out. You know, so it is one of those open-ended questions, but you know, that's the industry for you, unfortunately. But yeah, you know, it is what it is. And you know, moving forward, you know, you can't always look back and think, you know, what if. It's all about moving forward and looking at, you know, what's meant to be.
Would you ever keep in contact with Adam and Katie, obviously, who played Chloe and Dante?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because now we've got like Instagram and Facebook. I remember when when we were filming, it was like MySpace, and Facebook had only just started. So like me and Chelsea were always out getting up to no good. And my dad used to own, he was one of the owners of the Circle Club in Manchester. So that was a bit dangerous. We were in there most weekends causing chaos. And yeah, I mean, I'm still, you know, friends with everyone. We still keep in touch. But as life just kind of goes on, you know, paths kind of, you know, go in different ways. And, you know, we've all got families now, and, you know, we've all got different things going on in our lives. But it's good that we have social media because, you know, I can see their children growing up, and, you know, we can message each other on DMs and things like that. So, you know, thank God for social media, really, because, you know, back in our day, it wasn't really around. So it's just a great way of keeping in touch with everyone.
Well, Zeri, thank you so much for coming back on. I really appreciate your time, and the fans are going to love this, just getting to hear more, you know, from you and what you've done. So thank you for coming on today.
Thanks so much, Lewis.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.